They've done studies, 60% of the time, it works every time.
Oh, if Jeremy Hill can hold on to a fucking football.
That doesn't make sense.
You're listening to the P&E Bengals Fan Podcast.
3, 2, 1.
E in the place to be.
What's
selling trees.
What's going on?
Not much. Just, trying to suffer through this red season while I wait for the Bengals to reappear.
They were doing all right for a minute there. How they been playing these last couple games? Last I heard, they were 5-1. Didn't they just totally went the other way, right?
Yeah, there's 2 words you can fit it under. No bueno.
Yeah, I figured as much. I mean, I guess everybody figured as much.
Yeah, they blew a 3-run lead late the other day, and then tonight, last I checked, they were getting blown out by the Cubbies 9-1.
Oh yeah, now it's 9-2.
Yeah. So it's, but you figure it was going to happen eventually.
Yeah, can't win them all. Especially with, what is it, 162 games?
162. Got a lot to go.
All right, what's up with these Bengals, though? So last thing, we did talk about Brandon LaFell getting the contract, and obviously Carlos
Dansby.
Yeah, Carlos Dansby. So we talked about both of them. You saw that the Bengals have been bringing all kind of receivers in. Hakeem Nicks, Mike Williams. This is fun, though. They brought in quarterback Cardale Jones. How do you say his name?
Cardale Jones?
Cardale Jones, yeah. For a workout, but that doesn't mean anything. That's just all pre-draft stuff.
I'd be interested to see if they would draft a quarterback, just to bring in through camp and hide on the waiver wires, and just in case, because you have to look at it like
you got to do your due diligence.
You have to look at it like this. I believe this is the last year of AJ McCarron's contract, so they have to be looking like what happens if we lose AJ McCarron,
Right, I was about to say,
or Andy Dalton, if they like. You know what I mean? And so they might find themselves in a Denver Broncos type situation at the end of the year.
So speaking of which, you think they're going to go after this Manziel character I've been hearing about?
I think so. I think eventually they'll sign him if he can keep his name out of the limelight, and he can start to show that he can operate some sense of control over himself. I think they can, because the Broncos obviously went from the most primo situation you can get, a good young quarterback and a veteran, winner, to having basically Mark Sanchez. So, I don't know if I've ever seen a drop so drastic in quarterback talent. But yeah.
Well, let me ask you this though: who's going to be? I mean, who are you looking at your number one going in? Mark Sanchez or Johnny Manziel though? Or are you still drafting a quarterback anyway?
I think they draft a quarterback either way, even if they sign Manziel. Manziel's kind of one you can't hang your hat on him.
Right, for sure. That's why I'm asking.
So basically, he's boom or bust. He's one of those guys that can come in and really make a difference, or he comes in and he doesn't get his act together and you drop him. So as a franchise, you can't really depend on that either way. You're just kind of taking a shot in the dark. So I still think you bring in the draft pick no matter what, and then Mark Sanchez then becomes your stable veteran, and Manziel becomes kind of like, we took a flyer on the kid, and if he turns out to be pretty good in preseason and he knows the offense and he can play it better than Sanchez, and you can let Manziel start and then hold the rookie on the bench for a year and let him, learn. Or, like I said, but then again, do you want to influence like Manziel around the rookie quarterback? So it can go a couple different ways with Denver. It really can. At this point in the NFL, nothing surprises me. I guess I'll say that. But you kind of knew eventually someone was going to give Manziel one more shot.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll see. I mean, honestly, I think the kid gets too much hype and gets too much press, and and if he can kind of, like I said, if he can kind of get out of his own way, even if he got out of his own way, I really don't see him being much more than maybe at best a second-tier quarterback. But in this day and age of the NFL, sometimes a second-tier quarterback is better than having no quarterback.
Right. I'm just looking something up right quick. Okay. Oh, because I heard that through the grapevine. I had read something earlier about Johnny Manziel being in an accident earlier today, but I don't know if it's true or not.
He was in an accident?
Yeah, a car accident. But it sounds like, I mean, nobody's talking about it, so I don't know how true it is, and I don't know. It must, if it is true, it must be not that serious. I just went on, I just typed it in online just to see, and of course TMZ has it. They have all the news though, for real. They're like the first on the scene everywhere, and it says he was a passenger in an alleged hit and run, and he was picked up by Josh Gordon. But whatever, we don't have to talk about that. Let's talk about the Bengals.
Yeah, that kid's kind of an old story already, just because the media overhyped him.
So let's switch on to the Bengals and talk about this SB Nation Cincy Jungle article. You want to give us a little background on that bad boy?
About the possible succession plan for Hugh Jackson?
Yep.
I think it's interesting on a lot of different levels.
Well, for anybody who doesn't know about it, give us kind of a quick little rundown about what the story is about. I mean, and it kind of says it in that title, but
I think the basic Reader's Digest version of it is to not allow Hugh Jackson to go to the Cleveland Browns. Marvin Lewis suggested a succession plan that 2 years from now Hugh Jackson takes over as head coach. What that means for Marvin Lewis, we don't know. But that Mike Brown didn't want to sign off on it because he didn't want to make judgments for the franchise 2 years ahead of time, is basically what it comes down to.
right.
You know, so, I mean, what do you think about it?
I mean, I understand it from Mike Brown's point of view. I think as a fan, it's like, yes, let's do this because I would love to keep Hugh Jackson in the fold, right? But at the same time, from a business perspective, from Mike Brown, it's like you don't want to sign off on something that you don't know is going to happen. So I get it from both sides.
Yeah, I could see that. I think the interesting part is this. Is Marvin Lewis going to coach 2 more years and be done either way? Because if he was okay with stepping down in 2 years and letting Hugh Jackson take over, does that mean he only wants to coach 2 more years? No.
Right, or does he move up? Right.
You know, but then it's interesting that he gets a 1-year extension on his contract, which is become like an annual right with the Bengals. Like they always.
Right, I'm gonna say it's not like unlike the Bengals to do that every year.
Yeah, exactly. Like it seems to be a relationship that both Marvin Lewis and Mike Brown is comfortable with doing. It's just extending it 1 more year and just kind of playing
Just
it.
seeing how it goes.
Yeah, playing it year by year. But that actually tells me something, that Marvin Lewis is thinking about his future.
Right.
And what is that future? Is that future still with the club? Does he just straight out retire? Does he go to coach another team? Does he move into the front offices as a GM type role? You know what I mean? So it tells me that 2 years from now, it's going to be real interesting. So I thought that part of it was really interesting, outside of the fact that you get a chance to keep a great mind like Hugh Jackson, which we've discussed on this show before, that even if Hugh Jackson flames out in Cleveland in a couple of years and they fire him, well, we still get him back anyway.
Right, because obviously he went to Oakland, came back.
Yeah, exactly.
So he knows he has a home in Cincinnati. So at the very least, he could always come back here. It seems like, which I'm fine with because he's a great coach.
No, I totally agree. Like, well, excuse me there, but in either case, yeah. So I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting that Mike Brown, which I believe what you said. I think it's smart not to sign off. I mean, you don't know where the NFL will be in 2 years. You don't know where the Bengals will be in 2 years as far as the roster goes. So, you know, I mean, it seems like in NFL, everything, you know, something changes, big changes every year. So, you know, I agree with Mike Brown in the fact that you don't want to plan 2 years out like that.
Right. And to be fair, in the article, it actually says that Mike Brown likes the idea. He just doesn't want to put it down on paper.
That sounds like Mike Brown.
You know what I mean? Like he doesn't want to make it. Yeah, he doesn't want to make it guaranteed, but he liked the idea. He was open to it, but ultimately, obviously, Hugh Jackson went to the Browns, so we know how that went.
Yeah, you know, and so leading into that, really, because I don't really think it's that big of a story as everybody made it out to be. I think it's like I said, if anything, it was more interesting that you finally get a look into how Marvin Lewis looks at his own career.
Right.
And what is his next step in life. And so if you're interested in the Bengals front office from that angle, I think that article kind of leads you into thinking that in 2 years, Marvin Lewis might be ready to say, screw coaching, especially if he, let's say, for example, either doesn't make the playoffs or if he just goes, one and done again, or, like he gets in the playoffs and he's back out again because he gets out coached again. Yeah, so it kind of tells you a little bit into what Marvin Lewis is thinking, and honestly, like I've said the whole time, I really do think that Marvin Lewis will make an excellent GM. Excellent. I just, and I really don't want him to leave because of that, because, they run a good draft with him around. But, at the same time, what is he looking at, and if he does move into a GM role, does that mean in 2 years from now Mike Brown is going to step down and Katie Blackburn is going to take over? Because Mike Brown's not getting any younger either. He's got to be pushing it in age. So is this a succession plan that not only includes Marvin Lewis, but includes the eventual takeover of the franchise by Katie Blackburn and ushers in a brand new era for Bengals football? So, it's definitely, you can definitely see subtle winds of change, if you will, not only in those different aspects, but also in the aspect of the Bengals are going to play in London for the first time this year, which in the past Mike Brown has made several statements that he didn't really think it's fair to take a home game away from the home team, home game away from the fans. So it's interesting that they agreed on it now, and you wonder how much of that is Mike Brown and how much of that is Katie Blackburn looking into the future saying, we need to grab some of these European fans that everybody else is grabbing, or we're going to lose out. And then maybe Mike Brown said, okay, I finally see your point. Let's do it. Because I know that he has, in the past, said that he has no interest in playing overseas with the Bengals at all. And so now that they have agreed to do it this October, is that a change that's coming from Mike Brown? Is that a change that was kind of enforced by the NFL? Or was that Katie Blackburn saying, hey, listen, Pops, when I take over the ship, I kind of have my own plans as far as how I'm going to run the Bengals, and that would include trying to expand our market worldwide and also maybe having a plan to have Marvin Lewis move into the front office with us. So like I said, there's a lot of different angles to this that even though maybe there's no winds of change coming this year, but you can definitely tell that the Bengals are starting to now peer into the future, and they're starting to look to see what the possibilities are once Mike Brown steps down. So it's, I don't think anybody really has looked at it from that angle. As far as, where are we going with this? Why the 2-year succession plan?
Yeah. Why
are we playing in London? How much longer is Mike Brown going to be running the show before Katie Blackburn takes over? And so, and when Katie Blackburn takes over, is it going to be like her team, like she's going to run it? Or is Troy Blackburn, her husband, going to be a big part of it? Is it going to be more like a husband and wife tandem, mom and pop type operation? Or are they going to try to bring the Bengals into the future and have more of a traditional setup in the NFL where the owners kind of stay out of it a little bit and the GM becomes the more powerful figure within the football team? So there's a lot going on there, I think, more than meets the eye. And I think that's why, to me anyway, that article was kind of important, more important than people think. But I think people were looking at it from the base level of keeping Hugh Jackson, to where, to me, that article, Hugh Jackson's gone, so I'm not really worried about that. To me, it spells out a lot more as far as the Bengals' future than about Jackson. So, I thought that was the interesting part of it, that maybe hasn't been really talked about a lot.
Uh-huh.
Speaking of Hugh Jackson, obviously, what's the receiver's name that failed the drug test?
Yeah, Josh Gordon.
Oh, Josh Gordon. Yeah, okay. Well, that really kind of sets the Browns back a little bit, with him failing the drug test and not being available, because if there's anything that Hugh Jackson really needed to run his offense is a number one receiver, and now he doesn't get it. And so now, does that change his draft plans? You know, because now they need to go out, you know, because there's really no number one receivers available outside of trade. Do we see a trade during the draft where Hugh Jackson goes out and gets his receiver, maybe somebody more of a veteran presence? Then, you know, because now he's looking at the possibility of having to do what the Bengals did the year that they got, you know, A.J. Green and Andy Dalton. And really, you know, does he really concentrate on the offense, even though the Browns defense probably could use some little help? So it really changes the outlook for them. And, you know, but they did get RG3, so I guess they don't have to be desperate for a QB. Maybe they go out and get the number one receiver. Like I said, you know, so Hugh Jackson's got his own pot of snakes, if you will, to deal with. The Josh Gordon issue just didn't help.
Yeah, well, and you could take this with a grain of salt, but I did see an article saying that the Browns had commented. I said I did see an article with the Browns commenting on Josh Gordon's, you know, suspension or whatever.
What did the Josh Gordon article say?
So the article basically, it was just the Browns stating that they aren't holding their breath that he's coming back. Like they're not making any plans for him being there, essentially.
Well, obviously they're not anymore. Like, you know, I'm sure they did when Hugh Jackson first got signed. You know, I mean, but obviously what is going to be your response to that? Yeah, that's the only response you can give at that point, you know, because Josh Gordon has kind of painted the franchise into a corner. Because if they had no plans for him at all, then they would have released him.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, they would have released him when they released Manziel. So the fact that they had him on until this decision came out tells you that they, yes, did have a plan for him. And now Josh Gordon has kind of screwed that up. So, you know, that's basically NFL talk for, you know, I mean, we're just trying to backpedal because the dude screwed up. So, yeah, but it's interesting, though. What do you think about Reggie Nelson? Reggie Nelson going to the Raiders?
Eh.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say this: like he served us well. I'll say that, him and Wallace Gilberry. But you know, I think Nelson's got probably enough left in the tank to give Oakland 2 good solid years.
Yeah,
maybe not great, but
yeah, I'm about to say they gave him a 2-year contract, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's about as long as he needs to play anyway. Like I said, he's already getting kind of long in it too, so make a little bit more money.
Exactly.
I mean, you know, the Raiders are up and coming right now. They had a very promising year last year with. Is it David Carr or his brother? What's
Derek Carr?
Derek. Okay, David's the other his brother. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that was the one that failed.
Yeah. So they're excited about him. So yeah, it'd be fun for the Raiders, somebody else in that division to kind of come up.
Well, I think it's an important pickup for the Raiders only because you do have a young team that is looking to break through. You know, Reggie Nelson comes from a program like ours that, you know, has been very successful as far as wins in the regular season, so he brings that swag of a successful veteran to the team, you know. And if he can give you 2 years of help while you draft around other pieces, and then you go pick up your safety, you know, a year from now, and then let Reggie Nelson train him, and then Reggie Nelson's 2-year contract comes up, and then, you know, it's over Red Rover. You know, I mean, I think it was a smart move by the Raiders, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To switch topics a little bit on something a little bit more fun. Did you see this video that Andy Dalton posted the other day? Looks like his thumb is working fine. Have you seen the video?
Is that the one of him shooting hoop?
Yeah. He made like 16 3-pointers in a row.
Yeah, something like that. I thought it was like 12 3-pointers in a row or something, but...
Oh, yeah, made 12. Yeah.
There's a difference between throwing a ball at a basket with nobody else on the court and...
Yeah, but it's nice to see. See, he got that accuracy.
Right.
Just translate that, man. But yeah, no, it was pretty cool. Pretty impressive though to make that many shots in a row. He was looking on point. I'm not gonna say he has the best looking jumper, but he was doing all right.
Yeah, his jumper was kind of, you know, it's better than my jumper, so I can't really say nothing about that. I'm not the one to be criticizing jumpers. I'll say that.
Right.
You know, my jumper's inflicted, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but most athletes transfer well to other sports, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
You know, there's many bad football players that if you get him on a basketball court, you'd be like, damn, dude's all right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's a pretty good blue ball player.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because because they're at the end of the day they're professional athletes, so they're the best of the best. So
Right.
you would think that they would translate into other sports.
As always, follow us, hit us up on Twitter. Till next time.